and welcome to episode 29 of Destroy Before Listening. This episode is a conversation between myself, Pete Byrne, and Neil-Turpin. Amongst many other bands, Neil plays in Objections and All Structures Align. This is a return visit for Neil to discuss happenings over the past 2 years or so, since episodes 21 and 22. There's more in-depth information about the post-bilge punk band Objections, as well as All Structures Align. That band have expanded to a 5-piece lineup now with 3 guitarists and have released a new album at the end of this year. I saw them play in October and they were really impressive. He also talks about his most recent solo release where he plays and records everything as well as singing. The last part of the conversation discusses his drum teaching and practicing, the anxieties of performing, and the influences on his playing. For me, it's hard to believe that when I chose the intro music, which is the band Slanky, which he plays on, that we'd end up in each other's orbits. It kinda reminds me of being a 10-year-old skate kid, and he's totally the older dude who would tape you Minutemen and generally just get you stoked. You can follow on Instagram at Destroy Before Listening, but the best way is just word of mouth. Thanks. Yeah, I was going to pick it up from the last time because that's like about 2 years ago nearly, and you doing the band, post the bilge pump split and start with Objections.
Objections was kind of hatched in lockdown as a thing that could, actually happen when we were allowed to get in a practice room again together. It took us a long time to settle on a name. We had a long list, as probably most bands do, of very shit names. And, then it was a toss-up between 2 Objections and another name, which would have had a very different... it would have placed the band somewhere very different, I think. So thankfully we went with Objections and didn't go with this kind of weird in-joke name that wouldn't have meant anything to anyone except a few people that would be too embarrassed to explain the meaning of it. So to give you some idea, I think that's all I need to say on it.
Mysterious, aren't they?
Yeah. But we actually played our first gig before we'd settled on a name as well. And it was listed on the poster as a new band. I think the first gig was like November 2021, I think. I think that was the first gig.
So, sorry, how long did you have the band name then before, or how long did it take to settle on the band name then?
We just had to bat things back and forth. Everything is very much a kind of, it's a democracy, so everybody has their say. It usually comes down to like a case of just everyone just being exhausted by trying to make a decision, that it comes down to, yes, just for the sake of like saying yes to something, because then you don't have to think about it anymore. Thankfully, everybody thought Objections was an acceptable band name.
Outline the kind of the sound, or maybe describe the sound and the kind of the people involved, like how you construct a song or the songs.
I don't really see or hear it in terms of categories or genre. I just see it as the very strong musical personalities of everyone involved and everybody's total individual kind of character as a noisemaker. It's an unknown of just seeing how those 3 elements just sort of get stirred in the pot, and sort of you don't know what the result's going to be until you've just kind of stirred it together and like found out what the outcome is. So the one song was a unfinished bilge pump song. So we started with that. We brought that forward, and that ended up as like the B-side of the BSA Day single. But that one is kind of slunk out of the set because we kind of favor the newer stuff that we've all written, more together. So, everything's just collective. We just get in the room and there'll be a starting point, whether it be a riff, bass line or a drum beat, somebody will have something and somebody else will then contribute, and then, someone else will find their place in it. So it's a very organic, in the moment process of writing songs. Once there's something that sounds coherent, then one of us will suggest, okay, let's make that the chorus, or let's find a way to get to this point with a new part, or, and often we'll just kind of write on a whiteboard the structure that we've kind of cooked up. And then often we'll just kind of remove parts and it becomes more stripped back. I don't know. I hope that probably explains it to some degree, how the songs end up being written. It's very collective and just kind of happens in the room when we're all together.
I know you've got the 7 inches, the only release like to date, but like you recorded an album, didn't you?
Yeah, we've got an album with 10 songs. We recorded it with our friend Michael in Leeds. There were some songs which are kind of a little bit tricky to get down because there's a lot of gaps and stop-starts in between where it's just the guitar. And then there's another one where there is like a tremolo that has to be synced up in the gaps. So we had to just kind of go away and think about how to make that work when we recorded it for the album. So we actually did a little demo amongst ourselves as well in between the Mark Sims recording and before we recorded the album with Michael in Leeds. So we kind of went into it quite well prepared, actually, and we didn't, there was no new problems about how to get the songs down that were brought up, at the time. We'd sort of like fault found and sort of like got our heads around how it was going to go. We recorded 10 songs, and it's pretty much all the stuff we play in the set. It's all done and dusted. The artwork's done. It's mixed. It's mastered. It's sent off to Wrong Speed. So hopefully for a release in maybe February, maybe March next year. We'll do some more gigs when it comes out around that time. Probably try and play the places that we haven't played yet in the country, and probably a few places that we have as well. So I'm sure there'll be a little like spurt of activity around that time. I'm currently like experiencing a huge sense of relief that we've actually got the master recording and the artwork sent off to Wrong Speed, because it was a very oh man, it just took so fucking long to get to the point where it was ready to go, because we all live in different places. So we were never in a room together to do the mix. And we got Joe Goldring, who's from Enablers, to do the mixing. And when he started it, he was based in San Francisco, but during that time, he was in France for a while, and then in Italy or Sicily for a while. So he was doing it internationally, and sometimes having to go down the road to get a decent Wi-Fi connection to send us the latest mix and things. Certainly when he was based in Sicily, that was happening. And then me, Joe, and Claire would listen. We would note down anything that we thought could be changed or tweaked, and then we'd collect our thoughts. I'd send them back to Joe, and then he'd send us a new mix. So it's just crazily slow process to say, oh yeah, turn the bass up a little bit.
Yeah,
that could take a week.
Thinking about this now, how do you feel that the technology of recording and the fact that you can kind of do things totally remotely now compares with 20 years ago, recording in the 90s?
Ultimately, I think it's fucking great.
Yeah.
It's totally democratized the access to studios, basically. You don't have to, cough up a huge chunk of money and go and get something done under time pressure. So there's massive benefits to it, but it makes things just very slow in terms of batting things back and forth. And it can be frustrating if everybody's listening in a different way, you know. Everybody's hearing it through different speakers in their own, you know, in their car or on the headphones or like in the living room or whatever. So there's all that to deal with. I guess, but it's great ultimately because it just enables people to make music and not have a sort of financial overhead involved. It's you know, on the whole, like all the sort of griping about how long it all takes. Ultimately, it's fucking great that we can do it this way. I've, you know, really been enjoying that with the home recording that I've been doing separately from the Objections stuff and the other stuff I'm involved in. So, I mean, it goes to show just with a very basic setup that you can get good results.
The other sort of main thing since the past year has been you're now part of all Structures Align as well. Explain more about that group, really.
Well, Tim and Adam, the Innocent brothers, they were in a band called Nub in the 90s. And back in the day, my old band Polaris played with them. So our paths had crossed 20 odd years ago, more so probably. And then 2 or 3 years ago, I just got an email out of the blue from Tim. And he just said that him and Adam are playing music again. And they'd been recording everything themselves. But with the next record, they were interested in finding someone to play drums on it. And would I be interested? And I said, yeah. And then Tim sent me the sort of almost finished version of the album, which had programmed drums on it, which is how they've been writing up to that point, basing everything around the programmed drums. And then on the first album, Adam went into the studio and laid down the real drums. So they got me on board for the second album. They basically sent me the almost finished thing with programmed drums on that I then sort of took away and did as much homework as I could in the time available before we recorded real drums. So really, like, the programmed drums were a big guide as to what I played. And sometimes I would change it and sometimes I wouldn't if it seemed like couldn't really improve on it. So that's how I got involved. And initially it was pitched as a recording only project, you know. There was no intention of playing live. It was just supposed to be a recording project because Adam and Tim kind of live at opposite ends of the country.
Where each member is in the UK, where is everyone now?
Tim's in Berkhamsted, Adam's in Lincoln, I'm in Saltburn, and the other two members who've joined for the live band, Andrew, he's outside of Leeds, I think it's Boston, Boston Spa, and Ollie's in Middlesbrough. So we're all spread about, which makes logistics kind of tricky. But thankfully, everybody's really on the ball, and it's really actually pretty straightforward to all get our shit together and kind of meet up to play and practice and do gigs and stuff. Yeah, so Adam and Tim came up to Leeds actually, and we booked the Objections practice room for the whole day. They kind of basically brought a mobile studio into the room, and then set up, and then we tracked all the drums for that second album, right, you know, in 8 hours or whatever, just during the day. And that was the first time I'd really met them again since the 90s. So, you know, there was familiarity, but really kind of newness as well, because our paths had crossed so briefly before. But it was obvious that we were all kind of, you know, we were all going to get on really well. And then since then, with the third album, the new one, that one again was built up to a certain extent with programmed drums. And then I recorded demo drums at home, just playing with brushes. Then more things got added, and I was creating my parts. And then most of everything else was completed, the bass, the guitars, the singing. And then I took the real drums into a studio to like lay down the final tracks. That was all done to a click. And again, it was just like doing it as well as you can within the time that you've got, and like hoping it works. But then the crazy thing is that makes it even more of a sort of like, I don't know, like tennis match of like adding things. I think Adam re-recorded quite a lot of stuff. Like he re-recorded bass and guitars to like fit with the real drum tracks to be more locked in. So it was a real kind of like ping pong of sort of record parts, re-record parts, try and get it to sound like a band in a room.
Yeah, and it's 3 guitars as well, isn't it? Well, the other guitars, you were in a band way back as well, weren't you?
Yeah, that's Andrew. We were in Polaris together, which, we started in the early 90s right through till mid 2000s. And we did a couple of albums, did a lot of gigs, a few tours of Europe. When I told Andrew that I'd been playing with Tim and Adam, he was really excited about the whole thing, and and volunteered himself right away if they needed like a spare pair of hands to play a bass or a guitar. And at that point, it was still a recording project, but obviously I duly, noted away that he was a potential like band member if it ever came to that. But also coincidentally, like Andrew is from the same small village where Tim and Adam are from as well. So they all knew each other to some degree already as well, but hadn't seen each other, for like 20 odd years either. So Andrew is just like such a perfect fit for the whole thing.
How would you describe the sound or influences?
I don't. I don't. I try my best not to describe them. I think other people are more suited to that role than I am, because I just stumble and then kind of always regret it because it immediately like pigeonholes it or limits it, and I don't know.
It's kind of obvious for anyone who knows about kind of indie rock.
Yeah, it's kind of unashamedly sort of 90s sounding. Just all those bands on Touch and Go and the classic kind of guitar-based post-rock bands of that era. It's clearly got all those influences. And Polaris, that me and Andrew played in, was not a million miles away from that. And that was one of the reasons that I really chose to get involved and then now really enjoy playing it live, is because I realized I was kind of missing playing that kind of stuff. And it totally like ticked those boxes that Polaris used to tick.
It must have been almost like, well, it seemed like just second nature almost, or to hear you playing in a band like that. It must have been barely any work. It was a seamless fit. If you playing that style of music and that kind of band, it was just like, well, that's perfect,
Yeah, it's a comfortable fit for sure. Yeah. And it wasn't like I had to go and figure out how to play this style of music, or that style. It was just so steeped in it, all the stuff I was listening to in my teens and 20s, totally informed how to play, how to play that way. So yeah, it was like a really natural and comfortable and sort of enjoyable thing to like slot into.
Do you play with Ollie at any point before then? Or how does he come in the kind of picture?
Yeah, I met Ollie through doing some gigs with his old band, Year of Birds, in 2018, I think. And because he just lives basically down the road in Middlesbrough, we always said, let's do something together at some point in time. And we eventually did. And we just got together and just started jamming in a practice room. We kind of wrote a bunch of songs and like nailed down the drums and bass parts for them. And we actually recorded it all, and it was going to make it to an album. But it's like it never got finished. So it's still hanging around it, waiting to get finished. But yeah, that's how we started playing music together. And then Ollie's like ongoing project, Ivan the Tolerable, which is super prolific kind of name that he goes under. He's got a whole like rotating cast of people that contribute to his albums. And I became one of them amongst loads of other people. He was always getting offers to play live, and then finally decided to sort of accept one or two of them. So I got the call for being part of the live band. We've done a bunch of gigs under the Ivan the Tolerable name. So that's how I kind of, realized that Ollie was like a really amazing, powerful bass player, and that my playing and his playing just kind of fit together really nicely. It's all it doesn't need much talking about with us in the room. It just sort of, we both kind of know just by communicating musically, like what to do next. I've done a few of his Ivan the Tolerable albums now, and there's going to be a new one coming out next year, actually, a double album that we recorded through like all analog gear in Leeds, which I'm very, very excited about because it sounds excellent. And we did it off the back of having played a few gigs, so we were really in the right place and comfortably in tune with each other to just kind of go in and improvise everything. Because that's the other thing to say. It's all improvised around a very loose structure. So we just have to kind of, that's why I was talking about the communication side of it. It's not like you think, okay, 4 times this, 6 times this, and then etc. There's no structure as such. It's just, you're just sort of feeling your way through it, and then knowing when something needs to go up or down or when it needs to come to an end. Playing with Ollie is fucking great. So when it did come time to suggest people to make up the All Structures live band, that, he was my first suggestion. His tone totally fits like Adam's bass tone and what he laid down on the first 2 albums.
With regard to albums already, and do you have more plans in already?
Yeah, Tim and Adam are just like always getting the next thing on the go, as the current thing is getting tied up. So yeah, in the background, like songwriting's already begun for album number 4. And I think this one will be, even more of a collaboration than the last one, now that there's a full live band.
I guess the other stuff in the past 2 years has been more session work, would you say? Well, I know you didn't like to kind of be labelled as that kind of player or that type of...
And I don't mind.
I don't mind.
I don't mind. That's fine. I mean, I don't see it that way unless it is like literally a session for someone who I don't know, But if it's someone I know, and I don't know, it seems like too formal to call it that.
Which bands or people have you been playing with or doing that kind of work with?
I mean, it's just the ones we've been talking about, really. Objections, All Structures, and Ivan the Tolerable. I did a gig with Interrobang, which is Dunstan, who was in Chumbawamba, and Griff, who was in a band called Regular Fries. They did a record a couple of years ago. Whenever their drummer Harry couldn't make a gig, I would cover for him, basically. We did a one-off gig at a punk festival in Poland earlier in the year. Looking into the future, they're going to become active again next year. So there'll be some more involvement in Interrobang in the pipeline. I think that's it for like live stuff anyway.
You basically learned recording things, and your more recent solo record just came out as well, didn't it?
Yeah, like my 3rd solo album. I put that out last month. I'd finished that at the end of last year, but just kind of sat on it for a long time. I had to wait till I kind of felt like it was all right to put it out. I don't know. And maybe there was a lot of uncertainty about whether it was any good. And, I just sort of shelved it and then listened with totally fresh ears, having not listened to it for months. And I must have been in the right mood as well. And like, I just thought, oh, well, fuck it, just put it out. Then you've got like a blank slate to start writing new stuff, which is kind of where I'm at the moment.
When did you pick up a guitar or learn guitar or learn how to play and do all that sort of things, like singing as well?
I've always had a guitar since I was a kid, but I've never really learned to play it very well, and I still don't really think I can. I'm just I can play what I can play, and that's like it's not like I could jam or improvise or like be a very fluid sort of player. But I've just always enjoyed the fact that it's portable and you can just sit anywhere you want and just play it. And I suppose it's just over the last few years that I just put more time into it, spent more time with it, and got my fingers a little bit stronger, and started playing, and so it was like less sketchy sounding, even though it's still very sketchy sounding, but less so. So yeah, I don't know. It's just really I've always had a guitar kicking about, but it's only really the last few years that I've actually tried to become a little bit more consistent on it. And bass, I really love playing the bass actually. I only ever really play it when I need a part and I'm going to record a song, but I always really enjoy that part of the process. And somebody just left me with a bass basically. So I've just kind of accumulated a bass, which is very, very handy. And with the singing, I've done the odd little bit of like backing singing with various stuff that I've been in here and there. I had to sing as part of Jan Tiersen's band with a bunch of other people, and I contributed like backing singing to a bilge pump song. And in the sort of mid 90s, I was the singer in like a kind of post-hardcore kind of mathy band.
Is that Wooden Spoon?
Yeah, that's Wooden Spoon.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, I've always enjoyed it. And I don't know, I don't really think I can sing, but I don't think that really matters. And I just think if it's a case of like, if you want to open your mouth and see what comes out, then like that's so be it sort of thing.
Is there any singers or things that like influence you with your songwriting?
I really like listening to I go through phases. I love the kind of singer-songwriteriness of like Will Oldham and Leonard Cohen and Bill Callahan and those kind of downbeat, melancholy sort of songwriters. And there's always a lot of wit and humor in there too. I don't know, like I'm more up to date. I really like Aldous Harding. There's something that's always attracted me to quite melancholy, downbeat, slow music with a lot of space in it and a certain sort of poetry and storytelling aspect to the lyrics. So like even though I know I'm associated with way more like in your face, noisy bands, like if I'm sitting at home, I'm most likely not listening to in your face, loud, noisy bands. Sometimes, but I much prefer to have something like more low key. So I suppose like the stuff that I'm doing solo is more representative of like that side of what I listen to.
How has it been received?
I don't know. Okay, I guess. I don't know. Most of the time, I just think my friends are just being nice and just saying, "Oh yeah, well done." And I think, well, that's fine. That's okay. Like maybe they're just thinking, yeah, let him get on with it. I don't know. I think whenever anybody says anything nice about it, I'm very pleased to hear it. I've not hyped it or pushed it or like sent it anywhere really. Basically, the only way anyone knows about it is like Instagram, because I'll just post, oh yeah, I put a record out. It's on Bandcamp, and then it's on Bandcamp and it's on Instagram, and that's it. So there's no wider machine to sort of spread the word any further. But I send this stuff to like the two people I know in high places, one of which is Mike Watt and one of which is the other's like Mark Riley. And Mike Watt has been an absolute like fucking champion of what I'm doing. So that's made me really happy. He's always been really supportive and like played stuff on his show and got me to talk on his show. And then this time around, Mark Riley picked it up as well. I'd sent him the first 2 albums and got no reply. And I'm just like, well, that's, obviously totally fine. He just sort of likes what he likes. And, he's not going to play something he's not into. But for some reason, he kind of picked up and got really on board with this new one. And, I just sent him a link to it and just said, hi, mate, new album for you. And I'd noticed on the Bandcamp stats that he bought it, and then he messaged me to say he was going to play a song on the show. So I was totally fucking over the moon about that. And yeah, so that was really like, that was it. That was a huge buzz to get a little bit of feedback that way, and a little bit of, I don't know, just be part of that wider conversation in the sort of Six Music universe.
I was going to ask as well, I mean, you'd moved nearer to Saltburn to be nearer to the sea to surf, and if the sort of principles with surfing, surfing, skating, and like the drums, if there's a sort of a parallel with a sort of more like a meditation on something. Whether
That's a good question. There's a similar thing that happens when you're surfing and when you're improvising musically, in that you have to be super focused and responsive to what's going on around you. In the improvisation scenario, you've really got to listen to the other people and just stay on your toes and be ready to change or respond or react. And there's a similarity when you're surfing, in that you have to tune into what the wave is doing and be really ready to respond and react to that as well. So I think that is a kind of fair bit of crossover, and also could be described in that sort of meditative way as well, in that your concentration is like, there's no distractions from outside. Your concentration is like really true. So yeah, there is that one aspect. I don't know, both
discipline as well, maybe. Well,
yeah. Neither thing is easy to do. It takes a lot of time and effort to kind of get to some sort of level where you're kind of, you've got it together. I guess both are physical to some degree. I don't know. They're like, I suppose, in terms of rhythm as well. Obviously, the drums, it's all about rhythm. But when you're surfing, when it's going well, you get in sync with the rhythm of the swell and the frequency of the sets and the waves that are coming your way. So there's a rhythm in that sense as well, this kind of like rhythm of nature that you become aware of. And it's, basically you sort of learn how to read the waves, and that is about tuning into the rhythm. So yeah, there is that as well, in a sort of broader sense. Both things are really fun to do. They're hugely different though. I mean, because playing drums is like a really collective and shared thing. I much prefer playing with other people than playing solo.
Yeah. Do you ever just practice in a room by yourself ever?
I go through phases. Like, I rarely sit down and practice these, to be honest. I'll sit down and like practice, like with all structures. I'll listen to the set on headphones, and I've got a mix that doesn't have any drums in it. So I'll practice in that sense, but that's just a kind of a substitute band practice. I've not really sat down and thought, I'm going to try and, master this difficult rudiment and try and play it for 10 minutes at 120 BPM or any of that kind of stuff, which I've done a lot of in the past. But yeah, I don't know. I only really pick up and play when there's some sort of purpose to it these days. I'm not really too driven to just kind of work on, the rudimentary skills. But part of that is to do with like not having a room that I can play loud in. I'm limited to playing with brushes. So sometimes I'll just practice on a practice pad, but like if I had a dedicated room where I could make a racket, that would be a different story. I'd probably be dedicating way more time to playing and practicing in its own right.
Yeah. You teach drums as well. I was interested in how do you direct them or sort of channel their energies in the right direction?
That's another good question.
It was two in a row there, fucking hell. I'm doing alright. Normally I'm just like fucking I don't have questions. I never have done. There's a point when I'm saying, but fucking hell, man. That's lost. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're on a roll.
Yeah.
I tend to be really open to figuring out how each student is going to learn, and whether it's by ear, whether it's by reading notation, whether it's by listening to me play it and then copying it. Everybody is just differently orientated in how they pick stuff up. So I'll try and get a sense of that, and I'll get a sense of how structured somebody wants it to be. Do they want to work through the grades and do it by the book and do exams, or do they want to just throw their favorite songs at me and I'll go away and figure out the drums, and then we'll make that the lesson. I'll teach them the drum parts to the songs that they're into. Whatever keeps them enthusiastic, I'm totally happy to take that route. And then, and ultimately, I suppose everything that you need to know to play, you'll get to one way or another, whichever route you take, whether it's the textbook graded route or, the just sort of playing stuff that you're into and like the sounds of route. Eventually, you're going to come across the same sort of technical challenges that then I can start to unravel for them as a drum teacher. But really, I'm just the sort of bottom line is like keep the enthusiasm there, because the moment it becomes like a chore or something unenjoyable, then it's like it's gone off track. It's taken a wrong turn. So I don't have like a strict my way or the highway sort of approach. I'm quite open to it. And also, my youngest student is 7. The eldest is in his 70s. I've just got to adapt to how everybody communicates and like intuit what they're feeling about how they're playing, and any problems or like stumbling blocks. Just have to like really strip it back and then piece it back together again, and just make sure that there's no uncertainty around what is a bit like being asked for with any particular bit of drumming or playing or like coordination.
Have you ever taught blast beats?
Nobody has ever asked me to teach them blast beats.
Can you blast?
I probably could if I had to. Yeah, I've done it. There's tiny little bits of songs here and there where I've like dabbled with that. I mean, it seems to me that it's a feat of endurance. I think anybody could do it because it's actually very simple, but that doesn't mean to say that it's easy. If you saw the notation for a blast beat, it would just be very, very simple. Anyone could get their head around it, but then you've got to play it at like 100 miles an hour for like 5 minutes and keep it solid.
Yeah. The guy, George Colias, plays in Nile. There's like YouTube videos of him blasting at just 230 BPM, 240 BPM. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it becomes like an Olympic sport.
It's not for everyone. It's not going to work there's a difference between doing that and then just feel the two completely separate things.
There's a difference between doing that and making music.
Yeah.
I think drums has this sort of strange sideshow aspect to it. There is this sort of sporting contest aspect
Yeah,
to it.
yeah, like a lead guitar.
But like, yeah, it's funny how like playing fast is regarded as
Good.
really good.
In the way, well, fucking hell, man. Not everyone wants to listen to that.
Here's something complicated and fast.
When you stop fucking with time signatures and meter and things as well, that's another one. Yeah, it's hard to do, but like it's also unlistenable at the same point.
I guess all that stuff is like, it's just got to be treated carefully and tastefully. If you can make it sound good and you can incorporate all that busyness and sort of technical skill, then like, great. But I think if it's just like trying to get the world record for like, fastest double bass drum at 240 BPM for like 10 minutes, it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's great. But music lies somewhere else, I think.
Two other sort of question ideas. At this stage, you would have played like countless gigs. I don't know how many, probably fucking, I don't know, thousands. Fuck knows.
Probably. I don't know how many either.
Yeah. And if you ever kind of still experience anxiety or stage fright, even.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think how I experience it at the moment is if I know I've got a gig, like if I had a gig this evening, I'd have woken up this morning and it would be the first thing I was thinking about. And throughout the whole day, in the back of my mind, I would be preparing for it. And I don't even know what I mean by that, but trying to somehow like generate what's necessary to get on a stage and like play in front of people. That'd be the process. It's sort of like a nervous tension and an excitement as well. You just have to generate this sort of different attitude or feeling and sort of like have this pent up thing that builds through the day until it like gets its release at the gig. There's always like a certain amount of anxiety in the mix there and a certain amount of excitement and sort of, all kinds of stuff in the pot. On the whole, that's how I experience it at the moment because gigs tend to be like one-offs or like maybe two if there's a Friday, Saturday. I haven't really toured for ages. But when you're in a tour situation, it's different because you kind of just become acclimatized and that's what you're there for. Your normal life doesn't necessarily exist if you're like playing gigs day after day. Your normal life becomes this kind of weird new life where all you have to think about is playing music. You don't have to go through this same psyching yourself up through the day thing. It just becomes more comfortable. You just sort of know what's expected and you kind of get into that right zone and stay there. Whereas like if it's a one-off gig, you're sort of extracting yourself from your kind of everyday existence to sort of like be in this really odd position of like people staring at you and listening to what you're doing and responding. And yeah, so when you're not doing it as often, it's more of a leap, more of a shift from just sort of like going about your daily business. So yeah, I suppose there is like not stage fright, but just to like,
I know we've, talked about obvious drumming influences, like Burt Walford, Slint, and Damon Che, like Don Caballero. That's like the obvious stuff. What have been your major sort of top 5 influences in your drum playing?
my immediate like go-to is like Elvin Jones. I've always loved, once I got my head around it and what he was doing and his like contribution to drumming and how he changed the direction of it. Yeah, he's always been a favorite just because he's just got like so much personality in what he's doing. And you can immediately recognize his sound when you listen to, an album that he's playing on, you just know who it is right away. So like Elvin Jones for sure. And, you know, there are still a few of his ideas that I really enjoy playing and kind of enjoy dropping into songs or whatever when I get the opportunity, when they fit the bill, like little Elvin-esque things. But he's obviously, you know, like a jazz player. Um, I don't really play jazz, but I like to play some of that stuff and try and weave it into, you know, the more rock stuff that I do. So yeah, Elvin, he's up there, totally up there. But along with like Tony Williams and Max Roach, I love all the jazz kind of legends and you know, the game changing jazz drummers. I'd say like they're always up there on the top. And I really love Tony Allen and Clyde Stubblefield, you know, the more kind of repetitive groove based stuff of like the 70s, James Brown, Fela Kuti. I totally love their playing. And again, it's like you can hear their identity, you recognize who it is. There's this like musical personality that is coming out in what they're doing. And it's not about how technical it is or how hard it is or fast or whatever. It sounds fucking great. And it conveys, I don't know, so much personality along with it. And if I hear some good drumming, my instant sort of reaction is to smile. It just sort of makes me smile and makes me sort of, you know, without even noticing, I start kind of moving a little bit and like nodding or like tapping something and acknowledging it. I love all the good drummers, you know, like Jackie Leibzeit, he's up there for me. His approach is fucking great. Then the classic rock drummers like Bill Ward and John Bonham. I guess to any drummer, these are all just like really, you know, seemingly obvious choices, but they're fucking great. So they're my obvious choices too, because they're such classic, game changing, amazing players. And again, their style is instantly recognizable. You just kind of know who it is just by the way they're playing, by the feel that they've got, by the sound of their drums, the way they're hitting their drums and how they articulate everything they do. It just sort of comes over in such a pleasing way. And I kind of love that stuff. But you know, I've got all the time in the world for like Dave Lombardo's playing on the classic Slayer albums as well. That's just so powerful and exciting. And yeah, I mean, just absolutely fucking knocks your socks off. I don't know, any good bit of drumming, I'm down with it. As long as it's got some sort of character or personality. I really like Jim White's playing Dirty Three. You know, again, he's like really clearly identifiable as, you know, who it is as soon as you hear it. So I think that's the common thread with all these choices are like their identity is so present in what they do. They're expressing their own musical personality and not trying to sound like anyone else. Although they'll all obviously have their influences, it's kind of funneled and filtered in such a way that who they are is kind of coming out in what they do. And like you mentioned, Damon Che, he's obviously exactly totally ticks those boxes as well. You know, there's just no mistaking a unique approach to playing that's like so idiosyncratic and so obviously like unique. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I'll really appreciate. Then, you know, obviously it's got to sound good as well.
spend the day inside. By breaking my leg, I won't have to go anywhere. My mind thinking. The tales of the scene I'll sit within. The time's for living in opposite. Time for remedy tastes like it. Close to the mouths of an activity. Every son of God won't let me in. Love my already shredded dignity. Time and told on everything. Feel like the time to watch it fall. Down, 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 down.